It's 1:09. It is Friday. No, wait, it's Fri Jay.
Good morning, Americans. It's Fri Jay.
On Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's not morning, but that's okay. Paul Harvey doesn't know that.
I've been trying to get that fixed, but
I know. I'm working on it. He's in North Carolina this weekend. He said he'll be back on Monday. I said they don't have microphones in North Carolina. We're talking about the guy that does the Paul Harvey impersonation.
oh, I thought that was Paul Harvey.
Well, that's what you get for thinking, as my grandma used to say. Hey, Jay St. Clair is with us, and as I like to say to Jay as we begin these Fri Jay conversations, Jay, how you doing, buddy?
Matt, if I were any better, it would be next Saturday.
What's going on next Saturday, Jay?
I will be driving race cars at Daytona International Speedway.
See, I was right away going to criticize you for the way you asked the question. It should have been, which track are you going to be at, Jay?
No. I just want to give him a broad, much like the rest of the drivers on the race course, I want to give him a wide berth to drive right through there. I'm excited for you. Tell everybody what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's an endurance race, right? These have been around a long time. The 24 Hours of Le Mans, right, is probably the most famous one. And they have a 24 hours at Daytona. Well, this is going to be 14 hours at Daytona. But at Le Mans, they drive $1 million race cars.
Uh-huh.
We will be driving Mazda Miatas, which are a little bit less than $1 million.
I love Miatas.
Oh, they're fun little cars, and they're great little race cars. And, so 14 hours in a Mazda Miata. I won't drive 14 hours. The maximum that you can drive in one stint is 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 4 people. We have 2 cars and 4 people on each team. So we'll have a total of 8 drivers. And I'm just and then there's 100 cars entered, Matt. There's going to be 100 cars, or maybe a little bit more than that, on the racetrack at one time.
So, do you think? Have you guys talked about the strategy? I mean, you'll go the full 2 hours during your time behind the wheel.
You know, that's the goal, because you're trying to minimize the number of pit stops, and 2 hours is about our fuel window. So if everything goes as planned, each driver will, stay in right around 2 hours, depending on how many cautions come out in terms of fuel mileage. You don't want to run out of gas, but you don't want to have to pit more than you have to. So, yeah, that's the way. One of the cars doesn't get quite as good gas mileage. It's got a bigger engine.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. We've modified the Miatas?
Yeah, the other one is, and so it's actually cannot run for a class trophy because it's illegal.
But you're just like throwing it out there because why not?
Oh yeah, well, we got the car, and actually it's very smart. It's David Neal's the guy that's got the cars, and he said, I'm going to take 2 cars in case one of them blows up. That then we can all 8 of us can take turns driving the other one, which is really smart.
Well, I hate the fact, originally the plan was to be there, and I hate the fact that I'm not going to be there. I already have listeners, like Dallas has written in and says, on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, I have a question for Jay. And, we love these audience questions, Jay. His question is, does Jay need help in the pits or have an extra pit pass?
Well, it's open to the public, I have learned, and so we don't need to actually work the pits. It's real tightly controlled. You have to be a member of Champ Car, and you got to go through. You can pay a fee, registration, comply with all the safety stuff. But it's open to the public for spectating, and it's actually going to be live streamed. And I'll send out a tweet, a day or 2 before the race, giving the web live stream.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it.
So
Wendy, you have a critic, though, Jay. Wendy says, I can't think of anything more boring than an all-day Mazda Miata race. Well, Wendy,
Wendy, you got to get behind the wheel. It may be boring to watch, but it ain't boring in the wheel, in the race car.
What is those Miatas, 4-speed?
I think his is a 5. I've never
Or
driven
5-speed,
car
I guess.
yet.
Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
I've never driven a car.
Have you never driven a Miata?
No, not in real life, but they have iRacing has the road course track for Daytona, and they have a Miata. So I've been turning hot laps.
You've been practicing on the iRacing, Rick? Good for you. Good for you. So will you guys get a chance to get on the track beforehand, or do you just go out and it's...
Nope. No practice. No practice. First time I'll be in the car will be under green flag conditions.
Huh.
Yep. It's just, I think they didn't rent it. I'm sure.
Uh-oh.
Practice. So you just show up and race.
Well, I absolutely love it. I look forward to hearing all about it. I look forward to watching it if we have the ability. Please text that out or tweet that out or whatnot and let me know because I look forward to seeing you behind the wheel of a race car, and I look forward to seeing you the following weekend with our real estate development seminar that we have going on.
Oh, I'll tell you all about it. Yeah, no, I'm going to have two really good back-to-back weekends, man.
Jay, I had a question for you. I don't know if you saw my text to you earlier today.
I did.
So I want to set this up and make sure that those who perhaps were not listening to the show are caught up with what we're talking about, because I think we've got a very interesting topic of conversation, and that is what is legal and not legal with regard to recording conversations in the state of Tennessee. So this all started when a man by the name of Phil Williams, who is a reporter from News Channel 5 in Nashville, Tennessee, announced that he's an investigative reporter, and he announced he has this huge bombshell report that's coming out Monday at 6:00. Bombshell report. Everybody needs to be watching. And so, as people often do, because he's broken a number of stories over the years in Nashville about the General Assembly and other matters, everyone tunes in. And his bombshell report was about this secret recording that was made between a lobbyist and a lawmaker by the name of Representative Todd Warner. Todd Warner is a Republican from Chapel Hill. The lobbyist is the executive director of Americans for Prosperity Tennessee, a woman by the name of Tori Venable, whom I had on Tuesday to answer some of the allegations made in the bombshell report by Phil Williams. And his bombshell report turned out to be Tori Venable talking to Todd Warner, encouraging him to vote in favor of a school choice piece of legislation that her organization is behind, and telling him if he doesn't, they're going to campaign against him. And if he doesn't, they're going to support somebody else in his district. This was the nature of the report, Jay. That was it. That believe it or not, a lobbyist told a lawmaker if they didn't vote the way they wanted them to, that they were going to fight against them in the next election cycle. That was it. That was the whole deal. So it was a big, huge nothing burger. I think we lost Jay there for a second, but I think we got him back.
Yeah, the call dropped.
Yeah, it was a huge nothing burger for those who aren't familiar with the story. So, Jay, I don't know how much of that you caught, but I'm just catching everybody up. So this entire story was about a lobbyist having the audacity to tell a lawmaker, hey, you need to support this bill or we're going to be against you in the next election. That was it. Something that lobbyists do every day.
Was lobbying?
A lobbyist was lobbying, Jay. Imagine that.
That's shocking.
So I was having a follow-up conversation with Tori Venable, the executive director of Americans for Prosperity, and she said, yeah, that's me on the tape, and yeah, I said all of that, and yeah, I stand by it. I mean, that's what we do. Well, in the midst of that, Representative Todd Warner called the radio show and wanted to talk to me. And I asked him who recorded this conversation. And he said, well, it wasn't me. And I said, well, who did? I don't know. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't know? And we went round and round, and he would never tell me the nature of how the recording happened. And I said, well, look, if you don't know that the recording is happening and Tori didn't know the recording is happening, well, then something happened that was illegal.
Right.
And so I asked Jay to do a little bit of sleuthing and to correct me if I am wrong on any of this regarding the law in the state of Tennessee, because here's the deal. If neither of them were familiar with or had authorized the recording to occur, and both of them deny that that happened, then it could be that that was an illegal recording, I believe. Jay, what have you learned?
Is it just the two? Well, here's the law. A person to a conversation. So Tennessee's a one consent party state. So if one person in a conversation consents to it being recorded, then they can do it, regardless of how many other people are in the conversation. It does not require both parties to consent. Was this a one-on-one conversation, or might there have been other people standing around?
The individual, the representative Todd Warner, told me earlier in the week that he thought that there were a few other people in the room, but he would not or could not tell me who those people were.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think he's being a little intentionally fuzzy, because originally I thought I had nailed down that this was an illegal recording, but I think he was just squishy enough, Jay, that he squished him, because he says he didn't record it. But I said, well, were you by yourself? Where was this? He said, I think it was at my house. I said, well, was there anybody there? There may have been some people in the room. Well, who was it? Well, I don't remember.
All right, so here's the law. One cannot leave a recording device in a room and then walk out of the room and have the device record conversations that people happen to have in that room. That is absolutely illegal anywhere in the United States. That's illegal under federal law. One can in Tennessee, it's absolutely legal for one to record a telephone conversation in Tennessee without telling the other party. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely legal in Tennessee. Let's say there's two people in a room and one of them is secretly recording that conversation. Absolutely legal. There's no question about that. Here, so let's say that there is a room with three people and two people are over in one corner having a conversation. And then the third person is within earshot. They're not actually speaking, either one of the people, but they're nearby, close enough to record it. I believe that's legal.
That is legal.
I think that is legal.
Even if the two people within the conversation don't know that the third person in the room is recording them?
I've never really thought about that. It's the first time I've ever thought about that, man. But I think that's probably legal. And I'm looking. I want to find the exact statutory language.
Because I believe, in my reading of it, and Jay, I'm going to defer to you and your understanding of the law. You know I do, but what constitutes being a party to the call?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Or here it's not a call, right? It's a face-to-face conversation. And
well, no. Well, in this particular circumstance that are you talking about your scenario or the Warner people? Because the Warner Venable thing,
the real life event, right?
The real life event was a telephone call that was recorded.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
And the guy, but see, here's the thing. I think somebody's fudging the truth, because Todd Warner, the representative, Tori Venable denies any knowledge of it being recorded. And I don't think there's any question that she's telling the truth there. She did not know the call was being recorded. Todd Warner denies knowledge that the call was being recorded too.
So this is a telephone call?
Yes.
Only between those two people?
Correct.
If anybody else recorded that telephone call, they broke the law. Now, if one person is in a room with one of the people on the call and records half that conversation, I think that's legal. Am I making sense?
See, what I think happened, and we enter the arena of speculation. Hold on just a second, Jay. I've got to do this real quick. Jay St. Clair and I are noodling this out because I'm trying to help Phil Williams out here. Today, I'm trying to be a friend to Phil Williams because I'm worried that Phil Williams broke the law in airing an illegally recorded, or at least broke policy for NBC or for News Channel 5 in airing an illegally recorded conversation. Now, what I think happened and what they're saying happened, I think are two different things. And we'll get to the bottom of that. My assessment of this is either Todd Warner, the representative, is lying about his knowledge of the recording of that telephone conversation, or it was an illegally recorded telephone conversation. But I lean on the first half and not the back half. 615-737-9986. If you have any questions for Jay St. Clair, get them in right now. It's 124 on Super Talk. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Matt Murphy. It's you. It's Jay St. Clair. It's Fri Jay, everybody. Get your questions in here in a couple of minutes. We'll get to them. 615-737-9986. That's the Members Nutrition Super Text line. 615-737-9986. So, Tory Venable was on his cell phone. Todd Warner, I think he said during the course of the conversation that his end of the call, and this is how I think they squirt through, Jay, without presuming that I know what you're about to say. I need to include this as an informational fact, that I believe he said that he was on speakerphone. But he said that he didn't know the call was being recorded. He also indicated that there may have been other people in the room. So does it being on, so see, it gets a little convoluted and frankly kind of tricky.
No, well, I'll tell you, if I were the judge, here's the law. A person that is a party to a phone call, a party to the communication. I've got the statute right here in front of me. And here the communication is a phone call. They can record that conversation. Someone who's on the phone call, a party to the communication. Someone who is not a party to the communication, it's illegal for them to record the phone call. If I were the judge, I would hold that if somebody is they're on speakerphone, but they're not a party to the conversation, I don't think they can record that call, man. But now I don't know if there's any precedent on that. I'm just giving you my best judgment as practicing law for 4 years. I don't think that's the intent of the law.
What I think, and this is pure speculation on my part, and I think they're being real cute. I think that Todd Warner is being cute with the law and being cute with what he knows about the nature of that recording. I think he knows that the recording happened, and if he knew the recordings happened, that gets them out of any legal issue.
Yeah, and I'm looking here further. If Todd, is he the one that had the recording?
Or, well, no, he said it. He says he didn't record it.
Yeah, but someone in the room with him might have.
Right.
Well, here's what the law says. You and I are having a conversation, and you're on speakerphone, and then you turn to somebody in the room and say, hey, Bell, record this call. Mm-hmm. That's legal. Mm-hmm. Because a party to the conversation has given a third party the right to record it. That's legal. It's right here in the statute. I'm reading it.
So his and his denial to some jerk talk show host on the radio notwithstanding, if he were in front of a court and he said, "Yeah, I knew that it was being recorded," then that absolves them.
And he's saying, "I didn't know. I did not give anybody consent to record."
Well, he would never say that. That's that's when the politician came out.
Well,
he said he didn't record it. He didn't know it was being recorded. And I said, well, did you give anybody permission to do it if they wanted to? And he wouldn't tell me.
Well, then that's what happened. And that's legal. If he gives somebody permission to record it and they record it, that's legal. And the fact that he will not admit that that's what he did means that's what he did. One of the things I learned, Bill, if you're going to try jury cases in the South, you got to be able to quote some scripture.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt.
Right. I don't have a lot of scripture memorized, but I got this one memorized. The wicked flee even when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. It's Proverbs 28:1. I use that a lot in my practice. Man, this gentleman is not being bold as a lion.
No.
He's fleeing even when no one is chasing him.
Well, and the point that I made at the beginning is, why does this dude, because we kind of got into it about it, because I could tell I felt like he was lying to me. And I'm like, why not just say, yeah, I knew it was being recorded. People misquote me all the time, Matt, so I'm going to make sure that they don't do that anymore.
Right.
I mean, that would have been being as bold as a lion.
You have the wisdom.
Well, no, I know people that do, namely you. All right, Jay's with us. He's going to answer some of your questions in just a moment. 615-737-9986. Here's the bottom line on the Todd Warner deal. Todd Warner and Phil Williams, this is my assessment of what happened, okay? Todd Warner and Phil Williams got together. Todd Warner did not like the way that Tori was talking to him, and Phil wanted a scoop. I believe that Phil Williams was the one that recorded that telephone conversation. I believe that. And if Phil wants to deny it, he's welcome to deny it. I believe that Phil Williams was in that room. I believe that Phil Williams helped Todd Warner set all of this up for the purpose of stinging the Americans for Prosperity group. I think Phil Williams wanted Tori Venable to say a lot more than she said. I think Phil Williams wanted her to start really threatening people, but she never did. But Phil was already halfway into this story, and he went ahead and finished it anyway. That's exactly what I think happened. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. If you have any questions for Jay St. Clair, get them in here, 138. It is the middle of Fri Jay on Super Talk. Members Nutrition Super Text Line, the easiest way to get your questions in, although you may call in if you so desire, 615-737-9986. We give those numbers often and as quickly as possible to keep you on your toes. 615-737-WWTN. Jay, a lot of questions already coming in, a lot of concern about this this situation. It's a little bit tricky, but I just want to recap. So if you and I are having a telephone conversation in the state of Tennessee, if one of us know that the conversation's being recorded, we're all good.
Well, if we're the one recording it, right.
Right.
Or we've given permission to someone to record it.
Right. Does it change in your mind? And I know I'm probably asking too much of you because there's probably a lot of nuance into the law, but just generally speaking, would it change the circumstances if I'm sitting on a park bench in a public park and I have my phone on speaker and somebody down the way from me starts recording because I'm just talking crazy about something or another? I'm talking about a bank robbery. Right. That probably changes the circumstance because I don't really have an expectation of privacy at that point, do I?
No, but that person has not been given permission to record that conversation. If I'm a judge, I say that's illegal.
Wow.
Because they're not recording just you, Matt. They're recording the person on the other end of the line. Now, if they're not on speaker, right, then I think they probably can record you. But what makes it different here is they're intercepting a conversation between two other people.
And they're not a party to the conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Well, the bottom line, like I just said, is that I think maybe a politician is fudging a little bit about his knowledge. He claimed to me that he had no prior knowledge. I believe that he did. And I think if he had to put his hand on a Bible and swear to tell the truth, I think his story would change considerably with regard to his knowledge of the conversation to begin with. So that's just me. Jay, lots of questions coming in. Let's get to them. Let me see here. I gotta get over to my prep page. This one is I'm going to start. Normally, I like to hold these questions, but I'm going to start with my favorite question that's come in so far. Jay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
From 9999, that's just the last four digits. He writes, my girlfriend asked me to buy her a set of breasts. I told her I would buy one if she bought the other one. What recourse do I have if we break up to collect the money or to collect the implant?
This was your favorite one. This is actually, this comes up in the law quite a bit. A gift is a gift is a gift. I'll tell you where this comes up more frequently than medical procedures or engagement rings.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. But no, when you give somebody something, you give it. and you don't have any legal right to have it back. Now, I know that there happens to be a judge listening to this, and if he knows some nuance of the law that I don't, he might whisper it in my ear. But I feel quite certain about that. A gift is a gift is a gift. Now, if the person, well, let's say this, sir. Let's say that she'd never had any intention of marrying you, and she's doing this just to get a 50% off boob job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fraud.
Mm-hmm.
She has defrauded you, and if you could prove those facts, then that was a gift by mistake or gift by fraud, and in that circumstance, I think you could get. I wouldn't take the actual product. I'd take the money.
So, right, and to get it away from the 14-year-old nature of the question, let's say that, if a woman or a man said, hey, if you buy me this Lamborghini, we're getting married.
Yeah.
We are getting married.
Right.
And I never had any intention to get married. But I get my Lamborghini, and then I say, well, I don't like you anymore. I'm breaking up. If I can go to a court and I can prove those set of circumstances, I could potentially get recompensed for the Lambo.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go. Dallas writes in, and oh no, I'm sorry, this isn't Dallas. This was Lindsay that writes in and says, for Jay St. Clair, my dog recently bothered the neighbor's dog. We were warned that it's a misdemeanor to let one roam free. We tied up my dog while buying an invisible fence, yet she got out again. If I were to get rid of my dog, there's no pound, et cetera, in Smith County, blah, 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 blah. What am I supposed to do?
You got to keep your dog up.
Yeah, that's right.
You're responsible for keeping your dog up. And if the listen, I've got an invisible fence with German Shepherd, and she's 99% of the time she'll stay inside it, but there's that one squirrel that keeps flicking his tail at her and barking at her.
Gee, Olivia can't stand it.
No, she just says it's worth it. It ain't going to hurt that bad. And off she goes.
She busts through that thing.
Yeah, it's your responsibility to keep your dogs up. If the invisible fence won't do it, then you got to put them in the backyard or put up a chain link fence.
I think I've told you this story before. My best friend in the world, Wayne, we stood in his kitchen and watched his dog Kelly, which was like one of these Australian shepherds.
Yeah.
Wired dog.
Yeah.
And Wayne had an invisible fence, and Wayne had turned that sucker all the way up as far as it would go. I mean, and we held it in our hand to test it, and it hurt. I mean, it hurt. And we watched his dog build up, in the backyard, like knowing but the dog's name was Kelly, and Kelly just wanted to get out. And we watched Kelly build up the fortitude to bust through that invisible fence. Well, the problem is Kelly knows it's going to hurt just as bad coming back in as it does. And so Kelly's gone. Never to return.
It's worth it once, but not twice.
Not twice, not to come back home. Jay, question for Jay St. Clair from Joe. Are there any criminal or civil repercussions that can be brought against some of these elected officials for their actions against Donald Trump?
I'd have to know specifically what you're talking about. So I'm going to answer that kind of more generally. I mean, if somebody's committed a crime, then they can be prosecuted. Or if they've committed a tort, they can be sued. But generally speaking, without knowing specific facts, the remedy for a politician who does something stupid is to vote them out of office. That's generally the remedy against governmental officials. And
I think, I don't want to assume.
Yeah, you can prosecute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to assume, but I think the nature of that question just goes to the ridiculous nature of some of these suits against Trump and the frustration that many listeners and many Americans have that they are engaged in what is now called lawfare against Donald Trump prior to the election.
Well, here's what I would say about that. It's extremely difficult to get a remedy for a criminal prosecution that should never have been brought. I mean, there's a window to do it, but boy, it's a very, very narrow window. Civil lawsuits, the standard's a little bit lower. If the case were truly frivolous, then once you win the case, then yes, you can get your attorney's fees. But it's still a pretty high bar, Matt. I mean, take, for example, this is the woman that's suing him saying that he sexually harassed her, 10 years ago. Well, she got a verdict. So even if that verdict is reversed on appeal, that makes it hard for him to say the lawsuit was frivolous and utterly without merit. So it's theoretically possible, but it's a very high bar. I get this question a lot, man. Clients get sued and they think the lawsuit's frivolous, and they say, well, we want to countersue. I want to countersue.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice is, listen, let's take it one lawsuit at a time. Let's win the lawsuit, and then we'll talk about whether to countersue. Because your goal is to get out of the courtroom. I don't think it helps you in the long run to try to keep going in the courtroom. But if you really feel that strongly about it, then we can do it. But for now, let's kill the nearest snake.
Jay, there are many variants branching off of the we're just going to call it the boob job case.
Yep.
Folks, I'm so sorry. 3348 says, could he potentially, if he paid for it, get visitation rights? I don't think.
Oh, now that is funny.
I don't think he could get visitation rights.
That is funny.
Now, Kathy asks a more serious version of this question. What if he loaned her the money? I guess he has to prove that it was a loan.
Well, I mean, if it's a loan, she's got to pay back.
Right.
Well, whether they go through the marriage or not. I mean, a loan's a loan.
But I would advise if you're loaning anyone money for that particular procedure, you might want to get that in writing.
Well, I just wouldn't do it. I mean, it's like I don't ever loan money to family members. Don't do it.
Just give them give them money. Don't loan them money.
Don't loan them. Because you're not going to get paid back. Chances are you're not going to get paid back, and then you're going to be upset about it. Just give them the money.
Mick writes in and says, why can ABC, I'm assuming that Mick means the Alcohol Beverage Control Board, bust you for selling alcohol to someone with an expired license when they are of age? Huh. I mean, Jay, this is just me talking. I'm learning from you, but I mean, I would think that the law requires that the license be valid. Otherwise, I mean, look, I know about expired driver's license.
I was about to say, Matt, I think you're the expert on this subject.
Well, here's the thing is that I made the case that the expiration of that license in no way changes the fact that I had to have appropriate documentation to obtain it at the time, and it doesn't change my date of birth on the license. However,
that's right.
I mean, a lot of places, if you go into a bar or restaurant, they want to see your ID and they see that the ID is expired, they're not going to take it.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to guess at this one, Matt, but here's my guess. It's an educated guess because the people that do this, they know what the law is. I bet you the law says a valid driver's license, not a driver's license. It says valid or current. I bet you some version of that concept is in the law, and the people who are governed by that law know that, and so that's why they can do that. Is they're just following the letter of the law. That is my educated guess about that.
All right. Finally, Jay, this last one from 0471. Can Jay please write the story of his life so I can listen to him read the audiobook version?
That is the kindest thing that anyone has said to me, and since Matt Murphy said I was his best friend.
Isn't that sweet?
That is a very kind thing to say, and I appreciate that.
Well, everybody loves that. Everybody loves that accent. Where's that accent from, Jay? L.A.?
No. Well, this is Sequatchie County, really. I mean, to me, it is. Yeah, well, lower East Tennessee, and then sometime in East Tennessee, North Alabama, but boy, I hadn't got anything on that. What's that catfish woman's name? I've forgotten now. Did you ever hear her talk?
I did. I looked it up. Hannah, I think her name was, or something like that. Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Well, yeah, they certainly thought you had an accent up there in Yale. I said they certainly thought you had an accent.
Well, you saw where that guy stole our joke, didn't you?
Yes. You can't trust folks anymore. Jay, thank you for everything. I appreciate you.
Bye.
We'll talk to you soon. All right, bye. There's Jay St. Clair, everybody.